You're listening to eLearnChat, where talk is knowledge.
Hello and welcome to eLearnChat, our new podcast featuring prominent leaders, shakers and movers in the e-learning and training industry. Your co-hosts are Rick Zanotti and Terrence Wing.
Hi everyone, I'm Rick Zanotti, and this is eLearnChat, where talk is knowledge. Well, today we've got Gina Schreck back. She was really good last time, and we wanted her back. So let's get her in on the shot here. Hi, Gina. How are you today?
Good. We're here. Look, all of us are here at the same time.
Yeah, we are all here at the same time, and we hope this time Skype cooperates.
I was going to say, we better talk fast before it's something. I always break the internet.
Yep.
You know, that's the thing.
And before we continue, let me introduce our co-host, Terrence Wing. Terrence.
Hello, everybody. I'm down here in the bottom third.
Got him in the bottom third. And again, we've got Gina, myself, and Terrence. So here we go. We have our three-way shot going on. And Gina, last time we were talking about virtual worlds and virtual reality, which is probably not a bad place to be considering the state of our crazy little world. But it's a little more safe over there, right?
Depends on where you go. It all depends on where you go.
You get all the crazy people that don't have a good first life either, right?
Exactly. But you know, it's a really cool place because you can always find somewhere to learn. Just like our real world, right? That's
true. You said something which had me thinking all week, and that was that people who go on places like Second Life actually learn skill sets. For example, speaking skills, they get less shy, they get better managerial skills from going into a virtual world. Can you elaborate a little bit on that? I'm still kind of getting my hands around it. How from an avatar they get better in real life?
Well, you know, you're able to, it's interesting, you're able to practice skill sets in there in a way that you are less inhibited, so you're not worried about how I look. For example, presentation skills. If you practice presenting in a virtual environment, you may not be worried about people, looking at you, which a lot of people say that's part of why they don't like getting up to present. Everyone's looking at me. So you don't have to worry about that. You really can focus on narrowing your focus on your content, practicing getting your message across in a real concise manner, and practicing those skills like interacting with your audience and asking great questions. So, and role playing, people say they're able to role play because you're able to immerse yourself in an environment where you feel like it's really you in that role. And you ask anyone who plays World of Warcraft or any other game in a virtual environment, they say they feel like they are that character. So if you think about it, it's easier to role play if you really think it's you versus getting up and pretending to act a part. We tend to start in our minds saying, "Oh, this isn't really me," or I'm not really in that situation. So there's some real benefits to it.
Sounds great. Terrence, what have your experiences been in Second Life?
Most of my experiences have actually been with Gina. She's my Second Life mentor. And in many cases, Gina, I call you my first life mentor too a little bit. You too, Rick, to make you not feel left out. But in regards to that, I don't know if I personally feel less inhibited in Second Life or more inhibited. I find that the longer I stay in there, the more people know it's me. It's still just sort of an expression of the real me and not necessarily a fictional character. But I can definitely see how some people would be more, or I should say less inhibited to participate in a virtual environment.
Right. And it's interesting because I think when I first got in there, and I noticed this with folks with their first time in, I would say in world, they feel awkward. So they might feel less competent about really functioning in a virtual world. And so that comes out. They might be afraid to speak up, or they might be afraid to, but you would have that in any real life setting as well. But when they're in a role play situation, you'll experience people being a lot more bold, or the discussions being a lot richer because people will speak up once they're past the awkward feeling of, I don't know how to operate an avatar, to, oh, this is like me, like you said, Terrence, you feel like it's you.
Absolutely.
So it's,
And it looks like Lily's asking if how do you cope with not being able to see the eyes of your audience?
I just like you would in a webinar. If you're speaking and you're conducting a webinar and you're facilitating, you can't see anything. So you have to imagine, and even right now, I can't see you, Lily, but I'm picturing right now I'm talking to you. I'm talking to Lily. I'm looking into your eyes. And what's interesting in a virtual world, when I'm speaking, my avatar lips move and I gesture. My avatar gestures while she's speaking, and I will turn my avatar left and right to look at my audience while I'm speaking. Even though I can't really see the real person's eyes, if I can see their avatar's eyes, I know they're looking at my avatar. So if I turn, they feel like I'm looking at them, which I am. So you can turn your avatar to make sure you're connecting. And I always teach people who are facilitating in virtual worlds the same thing you would do in a real audience, looking at everyone in the room, not just one person. You would want to do that in a virtual world because it is different. Right now I'm looking at the camera and everyone out there thinks I'm looking at them. I only have to look one place. But in a virtual world, it's very much like the real world, that I would have to look where the avatars are standing in order for them to feel that I'm looking at them. And yeah, you don't have the same connection. I can't see if your eyes are, I can't see if you're nodding off, although it's interesting. Most avatars are set by default to slump over after 90 seconds of inactivity, which is hilarious because you can see if somebody is no longer engaged because their avatar slumps.
I never see that in sessions that I teach live, though.
Exactly. Yeah, you hope you don't see that live.
Well, I was actually in Second Life once, and I thought the person had just collapsed. I went, I'm walking by this slumped avatar going, wonder what happened to that one.
They're away. They no longer are engaged in that environment. So you have to either be speaking or moving your avatar forward, back, which is why I say if you're facilitating in there, it's all about creating movement. So using the space, which again is a tip in real life as well. In a real room, if I'm facilitating, I want to utilize the space. Don't just stand up behind a podium. Because if people don't move their heads this way, they move them this way.
How did you get yourself an Italian avatar? That's what I want to know.
I'll tell you, I did. I set the gestures to high level. I said, you got to make it realistic.
Yeah. Hey!
Wake up over there!
Pizza! I'm part Italian too, so yeah. I'm allowed.
I would say, yeah, my avatar is a little more animated than most.
Oh, that's funny. One thing you can also do is you can tell by the voice. Even though you don't have the eyes, the voice carries a lot of inflection. So if somebody's talking a little bit low or they're talking a little bit higher, you can get quite a bit of emotion out of that as well. And you kind of learn to fill in the spaces. They've done a lot of research. And this is really fascinating. Where, for example, if you are lacking in one sense, let's say, for example, you're blind or you're possibly deaf or you can't talk well, all those senses go into the brain the same way through the same sense mechanism. And what they're doing is they've put little sensors on people's tongues. And the sensor sends a signal which is interpreted as either visual or auditory just from those sensors. It's really fascinating what they're doing with all that. And as a result, people are gaining senses back by using something completely different. They could put sensors on your arm, and then that sensor translates a signal into your brain that says, oh, I'm seeing an image of a basketball. And it's pretty fascinating. And to a certain point, if you look at Second Life, we translate a lot of what we're seeing and hearing into a whole mess of other senses.
That's right. And it does engage you in more senses than other forms of virtual delivery, such as a webinar or conference call. So you are immersed, therefore more of your senses are busy and acting, and your brain is busier because of the environment. It really is tuned into what's going on. You will remember things far better in that environment than you would in a regular environment. Most people will say even more so than an environment where you're in a classroom live, because that's become so routine. So it's taking people out of the normal into something that's completely new and fresh to them. And we know people tune in better.
And I think it's probably just a matter of time where this becomes the new norm for communicating too. And when you think back on how resistant we were, at least those of us that can date ourselves with email, we were resistant to email, and we would never imagine using an email to communicate with somebody. And now we can't get people to stop using email.
Exactly.
So it's just a matter of time before virtual worlds and immersive environments become sort of a norm of communicating.
My fear is spammers in the virtual world.
They're going to come no matter what.
They're going to come no matter what, yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's always those seedy side of things that adopt technology faster than anyone else. So they're already there.
Yeah.
Although it is interesting because it's kind of like a spammer at a regular cocktail party. You know, what do? They must come up or they're probably the ones putting all the flyers on your car while you're in the cocktail party. So yeah, in Second Life, somehow they would have to do that, you know, because you are there in person. It's not that they can send you messages, but it's a lot harder. But it's definitely cool. I was just in there last night in Second Life because my 14-year-old daughter, the Shrecklet, she was doing a project on Michelangelo's one of his panels in the Sistine Chapel. So she was researching it, and I said, "I'll take you to the Sistine Chapel." And she said, "What?" I said, "Come over here." So we logged into Second Life, and there's a replica of the Sistine Chapel in Second Life. And so we went into the chapel, and she was able to fly, which I always say is the coolest part of Second Life. Yeah. We flew up to the ceiling and looked at the piece of the fresco, and I saw the transformation in her face from, oh, this is goofy, to, wow, this is the exact picture that I'm doing. And all of a sudden she was able to back up and see where it was in context to the whole chapel. So it was interesting to see her go from, I'm looking at the picture, to I'm in the chapel. And then she said, I can stand up here on the ledge and get closer to the piece that I'm doing. And then she ended up printing out a picture. We took a screenshot. To me, that's the kind of learning that you're able to use, that type of environment in a virtual environment, that you can go in and experience something instead of just reading it 2D. That's
pretty amazing. Yeah, and by the way, before we continue, I want to show you Gina's website. It's synapse3di.com. So go take a look at it when you have a chance. A lot of good stuff there, and definitely very interesting. I think you're a pioneer in this area.
Yeah, and you know, pioneers, we tend to get sent out to sea on big ships that never return. I'm kind of concerned about that. You know,
or you get holidays named after you.
Oh, maybe that's it. Well, I've already got a movie named after me, Shrek.
Shrek.
So,
well, we'll make it official right now that, what is today? Today is the 7th. Today is officially Gina Schreck Day.
Yeah, and what did I say about ships being sent out to sea? What is this? This is the anniversary of
Pearl Harbor.
I don't know. Maybe we better make it tomorrow. Yeah, you know, it is interesting because, you know, 3 years ago or so, 3 or 4 years ago, when we started exploring this 3D immersive environment, I mean, it was bleeding edge, you know, really bleeding edge, where people just thought you were weird if you talked about virtual environments. More and more I'm seeing virtual platforms pop up that, you know, people are looking for. We're at that convergence where the technology that we have at our desks is finally able to run the programs that allow us to immerse ourselves into these environments. So it's getting easier. What still stands in the way is usually an IT department that says, no way are we opening up ports into a virtual world. And we still, within organizations, we equate it to games. So, you know, it's hard to sell something to executive team members if you're wanting to spend money on games. So it's really trying to prove the ROI of using those environments. And there's some wonderful case studies out from Chevron is one of them. They actually created immersive environment for a refinery training, and they took a piece of training that they had their new employees going through in a real environment, and they moved it to a virtual environment, and they actually cut down and reduced their workers' comp costs significantly. And so that's a really great case study. Another one I thought was really interesting was there's some really cool diversity training that goes on in virtual worlds. What's great about it is you're able to change the look of your avatar. So I can put on an avatar that's a different gender, that's a different color, that's a different size, and I can go in and experience a training class and go through exercises that really help me understand and see things from a different perspective. And that's really amazing. There's a group in Second Life called Diversify, and they have a wonderful training program. There's actually several that are doing some really great things and have proven that it's, the return on investment is there. And I think that's what we have to do. So
does that mean sometimes you're Gina Schreck?
I'm Gina Schreck. That is my alter ego.
It's back to pizza,
It's funny because there's a woman who did a program. I want to say it's IntelliGirl. I think that's who it is. Forgive me if I'm wrong. She took a group in Second Life and had them all put on an avatar of the Kool-Aid Man. Remember the old commercials with the big Kool-Aid pitcher? So they had to put on these Kool-Aid pitchers, every student, and they had to go into virtual world nightclubs. So if you're not even familiar with virtual worlds, it's hard for you to comprehend. There are nightclubs. There's one called Frank's Place, and it's really cool because you have to have a gown. Women have to be dressed in a ball gown. Men have to be dressed in a tuxedo. They actually have a dress code and a bouncer at the door that will give you a dress or a suit if you don't have one because of the dress code. So that's really bizarre. But you go into Frank's Place, there's Frank Sinatra genre music playing. These Kool-Aid people had to go into these type of places where there are lots of people. They're there socializing, dancing, chatting, and they had to walk in with their Kool-Aid, and they were told at the door they couldn't come in because they weren't dressed appropriately.
Oh, that's right. No lounge lizards, right?
Yeah, no Kool-Aid allowed. No, no pictures allowed. And so it was interesting. They had to try to go into different places and see how they were treated, and then they came back and shared the experience. And she said it was really profound, the feelings that people had of being embarrassed, and they couldn't explain that it was part of a class. They just had to see how they were treated. So there's some really interesting studies that have been done and continue to be done there.
And I guess one of the keys is don't call it a game when you're trying to sell it to your organization. Right. Call it an immersive learning experience or something that sounds a little bit more technical.
See, Terrence, you got the key there. Use big words that they don't understand.
That's right.
Sounds like something we should be doing. Yeah, it is an immersive learning environment. And I think you have to prove the case studies. There's lots of them. Xerox is using immersive environments, Sun Microsystems, IBM. There's a lot of groups out there. There's a lot of insurance companies. Some banks actually have teller training that they do in virtual worlds. And, it's finding those case studies and then sharing how it helped reduce cost. Because, you can bring people together with no travel and yet have the same results and sometimes better.
So what are some of the things that you would recommend? Let's say an organization's totally naive to immersive environments, virtual worlds, and they come to you with, hey, Gina, what's our first, 3 to 5 steps that we would need to do in order to make this work in our organization?
Well, I would say you really need a phased approach. And phase 1 is get a small team, so kind of a scouting team, to go on some field trips. So the small team of scouts should log into a couple different virtual environments and test a few of them out. So I always recommend Teleplace. If you just go to teleplace.com, they have a great first stage virtual environment. And for some, it's a great place that they stay there. And they hold their meetings. You're in it looks like a meeting room, a conference room. You can share documents and video and bring up websites. So it's really a great first step. There's very little creativity. Your avatars you don't get a lot of choice, so you kind of pick from one of the 12. But I always tell people, take your scouting team, go there, go to places like Blue Mars is another good one. It's very controlled. Go to Second Life. These are all places that you can log in for free. Another great one is Virtual U, and it's virtual letter U. I believe their website is Virtual Beginnings with an S, plural, virtualbeginnings.com. And go and check these places out because it's free to create an avatar. Go in, check them out. Then take your scouting team and start looking at what particular programs would be best in here, because an immersive environment isn't good for everything. But then I would say you test a few meetings. You hold meetings in that space. You start exploring other learning campuses. So go on field trips and tours so that you can start really getting an idea of how do we want our, if we had our own space, what would it look like? Why would it look like this? How could we incorporate different aspects of virtual elements to enhance the training that we have? Maybe part of our training stays live. Part of it is immersive for ongoing coaching. It's really the first step is getting this small scouting group, and then you bring that to the table to say, here's our recommendations, and here's why we think this would work. One word that I always say when I'm talking to executive teams, it's a sustainable environment. So it is an environment that you can continue to use. You customize it, and then you continue to use it over time. Just like a building, you can bring in different learning programs, but the environment is still there and still yours. Versus paying to have a simulation created or a game, you spend all the money in creation, and it becomes obsolete when the content changes.
How easy is it to create new content?
Well, to create new environments or content?
Environments and content.
It depends on the platform you're using, because in Second Life, you can change the environment, or you can even go to other places. It's kind of like taking a team at let's say within your organization, you want to do a management retreat, and you take them to a park. Well, in Second Life, for example, you could go on retreats, so to say, virtual retreats, to locations such as NOAA, the National and Oceanic Atmospheric Research. You could go on these retreats and not have to even build anything because it's already there. But to build out your own place, you can either have your own builder and scripter on staff, or you can hire someone to do that. And it's someone that I equate it to a website, a webmaster, someone that can change and tweak that. I can do simple changes on our campus within a couple days. So it's very easy.
Now, one thing, you can use Second Life for training, obviously.
Right.
What other uses, for example, HR? What about sales?
Oh gosh, for sales, there's huge. I think that's one of the best applications, because you can do bite-sized learning. And salespeople, typically you don't want to pull them out of the field, so you want things delivered short, quick, concise. You want either video and audio learning that they can take with them in the car if they're driving. You want things they can download and learn on the go, and perhaps they meet in world. Maybe it's once a week for a sales meeting instead of a conference call. Get them an environment where they can do a quick role play. Maybe you go over one scenario. You can look at websites together and explain things to them. So to me, a sales group makes sense because they're typically dispersed. Really great uses, and you can do fun games in there. We've done lots of work with sales teams, and it's a lot of fun.
So how do you decompress?
Using that game word again.
The game word.
I know, yeah.
The G word.
They used it. Yeah, they said the G word.
And you just say that was the Gina word.
That was the Gina word, yeah.
It's not a game, it's a Gina.
That's right. And it's my holiday, I can use that word.
Hey, do you ever find people decompressing or acting weirder when they get back into the real world? Because like with some games, and you've heard of World of War crack, they get addicted to the stuff, and they actually get a little bit off. I've known people who've actually lost jobs being literally 24/7 on this stuff. They weren't eating. It's almost like a mental illness. Basically, they're obsessive compulsive in that environment. Do you find that in Second Life at all, or in any of the other virtual environments where people they have a nicer life maybe in the virtual world than they might in the real world, and they're not getting the help they need?
Did we lose her?
Not sure. She froze.
She froze. Uh-oh.
I'm not sure if Gina can hear us right now, but she has frozen. Let's try something.
She froze in a great pose.
Yeah, it's a good pose. But, you know, sometimes Skype has to catch up. It's a bandwidth issue.
Yeah, but this is a long
pause. So let's try something.
And this is our second part of her interview. My goodness, I'm starting to think Denver doesn't want us to capture one of their native daughters. Now, Gina has a fan page too, and I think it's called Getting Geeky. You know, let me type it in real quick here, and I can
gettinggeeky.com, right?
No, on Facebook it's Getting Geeky Web Show. That's what it's called. I'll go ahead and type that into the chat. And it's all one word, Geeky Web Show. And it's important to put the web show in there because if you don't, then you get all kinds of other Getting Geeky stuff. And you don't want that stuff. You want the Gina stuff. But she gives a lot of great tips on just about any technology. I can't say it's strictly on virtual worlds. But I know one thing she has started, I don't know how much she's been doing with it, is that she's created the Virtual Speakers Association. So it sort of takes the NSA, and I know she's a board member on the NSA, but it sort of takes that concept of the National Speakers Association, and it sort of morphs it into a virtual speakers association, which is really an interesting concept, especially when you consider how many sort of new platforms there are for virtual speaking, whether it's in an immersive environment like Second Life or Telespace or Virtual U, or even something as simple as a webinar, WebEx, or a DimDim webinar. But the skill set for speakers is no longer simply standing in front of a live audience somewhere, but instead they could be standing in front of a virtual audience. So I'd like to see where she goes, you know, with the Virtual Speakers Association, because I think there's some good potential there. It's probably at the early stage of adoption right now. I think there's a lot of traditional speakers who are holding on for dear life to their old skill sets.
And you're right. It's a totally new skill set. Gina, are you back? She picked up the phone, but we're not getting any video or audio on her. I think you're right. Skype has an issue in Denver, maybe. Oh, you know what I'm seeing? Oh, she's calling back, I think. Hold on.
Okay.
Let's see if we can get her back in.
Now, Rick always loves putting the camera on me when we have these technical problems because he's working the background while I'm working the foreground here, trying to keep the show live.
Hi, Gina. Can you hear us?
Okay, are we there?
We are here. Back? Yeah, you're back. Hey, there you are. You know, Skype has once again.
Well, I think you lost your relate feed, though.
We lost our relate feed?
I don't see you.
Oh, wait,
I see your picture.
There it is. Now it's up.
Okay. Can you see us?
It's trying to catch up. I think Justin's giving us some problems now.
And for all of you who love live shows, this is what happens during a live show.
Oh, you know what? There we go.
There we go. Okay, I see all of you. Are we okay on Justin?
Yeah, I think we're good on Justin.
Okay. You know, Gina, for some odd reason, I think your Skype is not cooperating.
Well, you know what? I just got off my PC. I thought, you know what? I'm going to go to my Mac.
Oh, you're kidding?
No.
That's why your angle looks different. You've got a different color background now.
Yeah, I just put my Mac up here, and I thought, you know what? I think it might be my PC, the program I'm running, the Skype that I'm running on my PC.
Oh, it could be. It could be.
And Rick, you're ignoring all of my instant messages to you, and Lily just noticed it too. I've been trying to tell you, get that mouse pointer off my forehead.
You still have it on too? Oh, geez.
Looks like I have a big zit on my head there. See?
You know, it's funny, and Gina had it on for about 5-10 minutes too, and I didn't notice it. Nobody noticed it. We're all on the same thing. We're talking. We're busy. All of a sudden, you look and go, "Why doesn't it erase?" Actually, I thought Skype is supposed to basically, when you go full screen, hide the mouse.
Right.
But it doesn't seem to hide it very often.
Nah,
so
you're gonna draw a mustache on me one of these days.
Yeah, I know. I am the frito bandito.
Those little hats, those little, sometimes you have
Yep.
the little things that you can add to it. So now I'm just on my Mac. I do not see the Justin TV. So Terrence, you'll have to let me know if there's questions.
Oh, actually, if you on your Mac, because you're on the same machine. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I figured, it's probably better that I stay stable.
Yes, well, we'll keep you stable. There are many things that can keep people stable.
Yeah. Coffee is not one of them.
Yeah, don't give Gina coffee, right?
I tell you, that's all I've been living on today.
Oh, that'll do it.
I don't know what we were talking. I was in deep discussion for.
You actually did quite a good thing, and when you were gone, Terrence talked all about your virtual speakers. So can you tell that's actually fascinating again, and I could see that as being something that really attracts a whole new generation of speakers, if you will, because one, it takes a certain talent to get in front of an audience, but it also takes an equally different talent to get in front of a lot of people virtually.
Well, and really the association is really more of a networking. There are people who come to me and say, do you know someone who can deliver this content in a virtual environment? And there are lots of them that are, really the key is I'm always encouraging speakers and trainers, come in and get comfortable before you have to facilitate. Don't assume, which I have a lot of people say, oh, I need to facilitate a program in Second Life next week. What do I need to know? There's no way. There's no way you can sound or look competent in a week of, you can get in there and not move and just read content, but that's not the point of being in a virtual environment. So, you really want to get in there and get comfortable and, go in there when you can learn for quite a while. I would say once you log in about 5 hours, you're really comfortable fixing, troubleshooting. All of a sudden your headset's not working or someone else's headset isn't working. And, maybe all of a sudden their avatar crashes. You need to know how to help people through those technical challenges before you have to facilitate.
It's interesting. I just this morning, did a 3-hour audio basics for e-learning course for Icon Logic, and it was completely online, virtual. You can't see anybody. You have to go on their voices, and they have to go on your voice, and just kind of move things along. But I've done a lot of webinars before, and you develop a certain skill set to learn how to deal with people when you don't see them, and when you're just trying to figure out who's doing what. And you don't know if they're asleep or not. You try to engage. And I don't know, as a virtual speaker, do you engage more? Do you try to call out people that are in the audience?
You do. Well, you do. I always say you move. I always say in Second Life, don't just put a PowerPoint viewer and then flip through slides. Actually move people to different locations, even within the space that you have. Instead of having one slide viewer with multiple slides, put those slides on the floor or put them on billboards around the room so that you move to different billboards, and then you have people actually moving with you. So that is one of the skills that you learn. And I think you said it earlier, a lot of it's your voice and the passion that people can hear in your tone of voice. There are people who are marginally enthusiastic in real life presentations. When you put them in a virtual presentation or a webinar, people are falling asleep and falling off their chairs. You really have to be able to develop that skill set to say, I am talking to a live audience.
And part of that is voice training. Train your voice to have some emotion. I did a quick blog on that a couple of years ago, which is basically, don't go in and say, hi, my name is so-and-so, and today we're going to learn this. You've lost half your audience in 2 seconds.
Yeah, you kind of have to have a quicker pace. You have to be more conversational. You really want to have that energy in your voice. And, how do you train for energy and passion? Whenever people say, well, you sound so passionate about this, I say, really, what you're equating to passion is volume. So I'm changing my volume. I have an intensity, which really is a great ab workout. Tighten your abs as you speak every once in a while. And it gives you that intensity. Yeah. You could be William Shatner.
Or you look like you have to go to the bathroom, one of the two.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. And caffeine, lots of caffeine.
That doesn't hurt. But your topic.
Are you one of those double espresso shots before training?
Yeah, it's the number one tip that I give people when I'm training them for presentation skills. I always say, if you're nervous, do not drink coffee during the day as I pick up my giant.
Yep. The mug.
Don't do as I do as I say.
That is a Shrek-sized mug, too.
That is.
I think we need to get eLearnChat logos on mugs.
Yep, that's not a bad idea.
Not a bad idea. But
And
yeah,
Bill-
you know, some of the skill sets are just using your voice, really thinking through your content to say, how can I create more engagement, movement for my audience? Instead of me telling them 10 things, why don't I ask them? Which again is true in any live or virtual. Instead of me telling you the 10 things, why don't I ask my audience? What
Well,
are the 10 things you think we need to do? Now, in a webinar, I can't do that because they can't talk back. But
No.
in a virtual world, they can
They
all
can chat.
Yeah. Well,
And speaking
what
of
else?
chat, is anybody on the chat room who wants to say anything?
Well, we got Bill just joined us, so welcome back, Bill. Bill and Lily are becoming our frequents.
There are super fans. We love super fans. We love any fans.
we love all fans.
All fans are good. Any questions? Any comments?
Anyone? Anyone?
Any Twitter stuff going on?
No,
No.
no,
Wait.
no.
Here's what I hear.
Cricket. All right. Gina's got a sound effect.
There you go.
Oh, love this app.
We need more people talking.
Oh.
All right, now I think Apple should be donating money to us every time we show or say
I
Mac
know.
or
That's
show
right.
an iPad or anything.
That's right. And I'm using my iPad as the sound cart where you get all the special sound effects.
Which is so cool.
And just so PC makers don't feel bad, I'm using a Hewlett-Packard, a Logitech, and a Dell computer to run on my end.
And look, who had the problems? I did.
Right.
I love my PC when I had that. The crowd is going crazy.
We're losing control.
How's that sound?
Well, anyway, I think we're just about up at a little over a half hour, and I know you have somewhere to go soon. So,
My daughter's first basketball game.
oh, cool.
Oh, so you have to go live.
Is that the
not virtual.
Shreklet?
The Shreklet shooting hoops tonight for the first time for her high school.
I love that, the Shreklet.
Very exciting. And you know, it's interesting because speaking of Shreklet, younger people aren't as attracted to virtual worlds as we would think. They see it as almost passé. It's like they've played video games all their life. So they see it as just a game environment. They know how to operate in there very easily. She needed no training whatsoever. But she doesn't see it as a place that you would go to actually learn content. She sees it as a game. The demographics in a virtual environment, surprisingly, are a lot older than most people think. It's like 45, 55-year-olds are in there in the droves. And I found out the reason is we grew up sitting on boring conference calls, and we have been over-webinared. So when we get in a virtual environment, we are fascinated, and we're so drawn to it that we continue seeking out those environments for learning. So that's another thing I think when you're scouting is take some of your key influencers within an organization, bring them on a cool field trip.
That's a good idea.
Yeah. You know, make it easy for them. You got to make it easy. Show them, you know, bring them out for coffee. You log in, you show them some cool things. And once they're in there, they're hooked because it's so different than what they've been used to using for learning.
But you put some SMS in there and they'll be there.
That's right.
Well, you can chat. You can chat in Second Life.
Yeah, you can.
You can chat. You can use voice. And I think when voice came into Second Life, it really was a game changer for that particular, really for all of them, because 3 years ago, I didn't know of a virtual environment where you could use voice. You had to chat everything, and it was really tough. And then all of a sudden, people were using Skype for the audio and then seeing the virtual. And then about 3 years ago, all of a sudden, they had voice in Second Life. So they're using the voice over internet tied in, and now all of the virtual environments, almost all of them have the voice incorporated. Second Life is the only one that your voice activates the gestures and lip movement.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Is Second Life the biggest of them?
It is.
It is.
I think there are 10 or 12 million users in Second Life, but most of them, surprisingly, in South America and in Asia, Australia has a really big population of virtual world users. The United States is the slow, we're the slow ones to adopt these technologies.
That's because everybody's in World of Warcraft. That's it. It's just
Maybe that's it.
or Call of Duty. That's the other one.
Yeah, I know. See, those are violent. I go, come on, come and learn something.
Do you see that some of this this 360 degree filming technology, do you see some of that replacing the virtual worlds, or just sort of being an extension of virtual worlds?
I think it's an extension. I think a lot of people are seeing that as a great way to create training videos at a lower cost than regular production. But I still say, when I'm watching a video, I'm not in the video. When you watched Avatar, you felt like you were there watching. One more step would be you are now moving one of the characters becomes you. So it is, I think we're going to see more of that, just because it gives us a feeling of being in the environment watching. When you can participate, though, which again, I look at that and go, that applies to real life. If I sit in a training class and watch, it's not as exciting as when I participate.
And it looks like Lily had a comment here, not really a question, but just a comment. I know your chat's not up, so that's why I wanted to relay it to you, that she would love to see her real estate students try to sell in Second Life. And so that should be an easy challenge for any Second Life developers out there, especially since there's so many houses all over the place in Second Life.
Well, yeah, well, it's interesting. Starwood Hotels used Second Life to do a lot of, to get some feedback from consumers. So they built a hotel in Second Life, and they brought consumers in to walk through the property and point out things that they really liked. They were able to look at, closet space and bathroom layout and give them really good feedback without flying people into a real hotel. So, and Philips Lighting, I participated in a study group with Philips Lighting. So there's a lot of consumer products and things that are using that environment for testing. I think for real estate, you could use it for, I think video is still the best when you talk about real estate, because you want to see the actual property. I don't want to buy a house based on what you made it to look like here, but where realtors can really use this is, number one, networking and education, role playing, and so they can come into an environment and walk through a house and practice. Where do you stand? The only thing that's missing in a virtual environment is that homemade cookie smell that you always smell when you go into an open house.
Cookies.
Give it time. Give it time.
Give it time.
The app is being created as we speak.
Yeah. I know.
And there's always a cookie monster.
My sister's a realtor, and she tells me those little secrets. I'm like, that's why the houses always smell so good. I will buy it if that comes with somebody that bakes me those cookies every day.
Interesting. That's it. Well, that could be arranged.
I know. For the price.
Sounds good. Well, we better wrap it up, guys. I know you've got to go, Gina, and darn that Skype. We're going to have to talk to Denver Skype about this. There's some bad router somewhere out there.
Well, now I'm wondering if I need to go back to the old version of Skype. I did upgrade, and I'm out of the beta mode, but on my PC, that's where we had problems last week.
Interesting. Unless the PC's not agreeing with Skype. Well, you never know. Skype does a lot of weird things because it does a lot. And every so often, no matter what you try, Skype's just going to act up. And remember, you're in the middle of the country almost, and it's going through a million routers, probably through your area, and who knows where it's going from there. So, and we're at the other end of the country, so.
The sticks of Denver out here.
The good thing is that we got 2 weeks of Gina, so that's a good thing.
So I think what we're going to do
Skype.
is patch it together. I'm going to take as much as I can, patch it together, and make a cohesive thing out of all this.
Did you get the email I sent you with all the photos?
No. When did you send it?
Last night.
Never got it.
Oh.
Bummer.
I sent some great pictures that you can incorporate into the video, the editing of some of the Second Life spots.
You know what? I'll check again. Maybe it wound up in spam because it shouldn't have, but you know what? I'll check again. I didn't see it last night or this morning. But I'll definitely incorporate that into the show if I find them, or resend them to me, and
send it. Yeah.
Yep, that'll work. And
still photos of some of the Second Life events that we've done.
That sounds great.
Yeah.
And anyway, as we wrap up the show, Gina, thank you as always very, very much. We appreciate your time and your knowledge.
Thanks, Gina.
You're welcome.
And for Terrence and I, just to a quick.
Wow, it's wild.
Yep. And the show is sponsored by Liquid Learn, and as well as Relay Corporation. So feel free to visit both those websites and take a look at what we do. And for now, this is eLearnChat signing off. We will see you next week. Our guest will be Ed Martino, PhD. We won't hold the doctorate against them. Anyway, have a good one, guys. We'll see you next week. Bye, Terrence.
Bye.